Lethal jabs, bloody noses, and breath-stopping takedowns. Now that's what a fight between Georges St-Pierre and Khabib Nurmagomedov would look like. A true battle of legends. One was the GOAT of the welterweights and middleweights, the other ruled the lightweights with an iron grip. It's the kind of clash that had every fan begging for it, but we never got to see it happen. Still, let's not pretend this would have been some 50-50 war. As much as I respect Khabib's legacy, GSP would have outclassed him in every department, and I'm about to break down exactly how and why Georges St-Pierre would have handed Khabib the first and only loss of his career. But first, if you started watching MMA in 2018 and aren't aware of what prime GSP truly looked like, let me take you down memory lane. Georges St-Pierre started his fight career pretty early. In school, he would get bullied by kids older than him, so GSP's father took him to a karate school to learn self-defense. This early karate training led him to learn Brazilian jiu-jitsu and then professional wrestling. At 19, he started working with Christophe Madou, the French Hurricane, who trained him for Universal Combat Challenge and then the UFC. After making a name for himself in the UCC, GSP took the next big step in 2004, making his UFC debut against Karo Parisyan. With years of training and a deep passion for the sport, GSP came out sharp, showing off his striking and freakish athleticism. He defended Karo's judo throws, landed clean punches and elbows, and even scored a few takedowns of his own. Being a first-timer in the UFC, he couldn't put Karo down, but the interesting thing is that Karo, despite being a champion, couldn't take GSP down either. So the fight ended in a unanimous decision, with GSP winning because he was clearly the better all-around fighter that night. In his next fight, GSP faced Jay Hiron, whom he defeated via technical knockout just 1.5 minutes into the first round. With strong debut performances and insane takedown skills, he not only got noticed by fans and commentators, but also impressed UFC authorities enough to earn a chance to fight for the vacant welterweight championship at UFC 50. On October 22, 2004, GSP was set to fight former champion Matt Hughes. GSP managed to land a few strikes, but Hughes, being a seasoned professional, took him down and eventually locked in an armbar with only 10 seconds remaining in the first round. This marked the first defeat of GSP's UFC career. Like most newcomers, GSP didn't lose hope after this initial loss. Instead, he rebounded stronger and went on a winning streak against big names like Dave Strasser, Frank Trigg, and Sean Shirk. But you know how it is in the UFC, you can't just hope for a title shot because you've trained for years, you've got to show some insane skills to earn it. So in his next high-stakes fight at UFC 58, GSP faced off against BJ Penn. It was a do-or-die bout for both fighters, as this match would decide who would be the next title challenger to face Matt Hughes. After 3 hard-fought rounds, GSP won by split decision. Even then, he had to plead with the UFC, but his plea was of no use as GSP's skill set and record had already earned him the #1 contender spot for the UFC welterweight title. Finally, at UFC 65, GSP got his long-awaited rematch against Matt Hughes, the man who had handed him his first loss 2 years earlier. From the very first second, GSP remained calm, focused, and clearly a level above. He kept Hughes at a distance with crisp jabs and fast leg kicks, and anytime Hughes tried to wrestle, GSP shut him down with incredible takedown defense. He even stuffed Hughes' shots and reversed him, showing how far his grappling had come. Then in round 2, GSP landed a huge head kick that knocked Hughes out cold. With a technical knockout, GSP became the undisputed welterweight champion. It was a massive moment in GSP's career, avenging his loss to Hughes and finally reaching the top of the mountain. But as quickly as he rose, the fight game reminded him how unpredictable it could be. Just months after winning the title, GSP stepped into the Octagon again, this time against a fighter no one expected to win. At UFC 69 on April 7th, 2007, GSP was set up against Matt Serra. GSP was in his true prime, all the odds were in his favor, but Serra shocked everyone. He was a veteran, sure, but almost nobody thought he'd beat GSP, and then it happened. Early in the first round, GSP looked a little off. Serra came out aggressive and landed a clean overhand right that rocked GSP badly. He stumbled and Serra didn't let up. He rushed in with a flurry of punches and had him wobbly. GSP tried to fire back, but he could not. He fell to the canvas and Serra pounced with relentless ground and pound. This loss was a humiliation for GSP. He was the reigning champ, heavily favored by fans, and got knocked out in the first round by a huge underdog. Everybody was shocked. Some critics questioned if he was overrated and even called him a quitter. It was the kind of upset that could derail a fighter's career, especially someone still early in their prime. But GSP didn't let it break him. Instead, he used that loss as fuel. After Matt Serra's upset, GSP completely changed his mindset. He publicly admitted that he hadn't taken Serra seriously enough and he wasn't mentally prepared. From that point on, GSP adopted a more disciplined approach, trained for long hours, and stayed mentally locked in. In his next match against Josh Koscheck at UFC 74, GSP began to reclaim his GOAT status. After GSP's previous loss, Koscheck was the fans' favorite, and most people expected GSP to keep the fight standing to avoid the takedowns, but instead, GSP flipped the script. He out-wrestled the wrestler. He surprised everyone by landing clean takedowns, controlling Koscheck on the ground and mixing in some solid ground and pound. On the feet, he used his jab, feints, and footwork to keep Koscheck guessing and never let him get comfortable. In that fight, GSP proved he wasn't just a striker anymore, he could beat elite wrestlers at their own game. This win over Josh Koscheck was a big deal. It locked him in as the #1 contender for the UFC welterweight title. That set up a third fight with Matt Hughes, and this time GSP was on another level. Hughes, who once dominated him, couldn't get anything going. GSP shut down every takedown attempt and was actually the one taking him down. He completely flipped the script. Then, near the end of round 2, GSP went for a Kimura, switched it up to a slick armbar, and forced Hughes to tap with just 5 seconds left in the round. It was a dominant win, and it made GSP the interim welterweight champ. He was clearly at the top of his game. A year later at UFC 83, he got a rematch with Matt Serra and dominated him like a goat, finished him with knees to the body in front of a roaring Canadian crowd. That win wasn't just revenge, it was the start of a legendary title run. One of his most dominant performances came in the rematch against BJ Penn at UFC 94. He took Penn down over and over, controlled him on the ground, and didn't let him breathe, so much that Penn's corner stopped the fight after the 4th round. Later, at UFC 158, GSP faced trash-talking veteran Nick Diaz. He tried to get in GSP's head with all the trash talk, but GSP didn't bite. He stayed cool, took Diaz down, landed clean shots, and controlled the fight from start to finish. It was a clean, one-sided win. Collectively, GSP went on to defend his welterweight title 9 times, beating every top contender of his era. And then surprisingly, after his title defense win against Johnny Hendricks, GSP announced his retirement at UFC 167 in 2013. He took a break from professional MMA, but never stopped training. Fans saw him training with professional coaches and clued in that he might make a comeback, which he finally did in 2017. At UFC 217, nearly 4 years after stepping away from the sport in December 2013, GSP reappeared. This time he moved up in weight, from 170 pounds welterweight to 185 pounds middleweight. In his return fight, he challenged Michael Bisping for the UFC middleweight championship. Surprisingly, he dominated Bisping for a good 3 rounds. First, he got Bisping down with a right hook and then went all in for a submission. With this win, GSP became only the 4th fighter in UFC history at the time to win titles in 2 different weight classes. Some believed he would keep fighting until his mid-40s, but in 2019, at the age of 37, GSP took complete retirement from MMA because he was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. Just when GSP was winding down his career, another MMA star was rising up. I'm not saying Khabib would just melt down if he faced GSP. Dude truly deserves his flowers. In his prime, he was untouchable, undefeated at 29-0. He didn't just scrape by with close decisions or leave room for doubt. Instead, he dominated everyone he faced in the Octagon. His game was built around that suffocating Sambo-style wrestling. Once he got his hands on you, it was like getting caught in a net. He'd trap the opponent's body and slowly drown them on the mat. Doesn't matter if the opponent is a black belt or a former champion, when you're facing Khabib, you are stuck. Just ask Dustin Poirier, who got choked out after being dragged into deep water, or Conor McGregor, who had all the hype but couldn't deal with the pressure, or Justin Gaethje, one of the most dangerous strikers in the sport. Khabib took him down like it was nothing and finished him by submission in the second round. What really set Khabib apart was the mental pressure. He didn't just beat people physically, he broke them mentally. You could see it in their eyes before the fight even started. But let's be real, whoever Khabib ever faced, he never fought a GSP level opponent. No one Khabib beat had the full package like GSP did. Prime GSP wasn't just a great wrestler, he was a freak athlete, a raged kid who got bullied at school, a karate black belt with a world-class jab, and probably the best MMA IQ we've ever seen. Where it takes an average MMA fighter 3 to 4 years to challenge for a title, GSP did that in just 1.5 years. Even when he was new to MMA, he dominated guys like Matt Hughes, BJ Penn, Nick Diaz, Carlos Condit, Johnny Hendricks, and Michael Bisping. You name a top fighter from GSP's era, he beat them, and not just once, he beat them convincingly. He defended his welterweight title 9 times. That's a reign of terror. People say Khabib would just take him down and smother him. You're talking about a guy who took a 4-year break from MMA and came back sharper, more jacked up, and challenged for a title in a division he never even played in. And the cherry on the cake? He won that. He went up to middleweight and choked out Michael Bisping after a 4-year layoff. That's greatness. That's something Khabib could never ever do. GSP's timing on his double leg was insane. He made wrestlers look like amateurs. And unlike Khabib, GSP had a striking game. His jab was lethal. He could pick you apart on the feet, take you down, and keep you guessing the entire fight. In a hypothetical match, could Khabib pose problems early? Sure. But over 5 rounds, GSP figures him out. He stuffs the takedowns, keeps the fight standing, lands that stiff hook, mixes in his own wrestling, and takes over. Khabib's pressure doesn't work when the guy in front of you isn't afraid of it. And that guy is Georges St-Pierre.